My name is Dora Richards. I was 32 years old when my parents gave my brother Tyler the house. Not figuratively. Not in that quiet, painful way families say, he always got more attention, or he was always the favorite. No, I mean they gave him the actual physical house we grew up in. The 2-story colonial with the wraparound porch, and the crooked treehouse Dad and I built one sweaty July when Tyler still thought a hammer was a toy. The same house where my initials were carved beneath the staircase. The same house where my mother measured our heights against the kitchen doorway every birthday until I turned 18. They signed the deed over to him in front of everyone, like it was some beautiful family tradition. Dad raised a plastic champagne flute and toasted the next generation. Tyler smiled so wide, I thought his face might split open. Mom stood beside them, looking stiff and pale, fingers tangled together so tightly her wedding ring dug into her skin. Then, Dad handed Tyler a brass key attached to a novelty keychain that read, "Welcome home." Everyone clapped. I stood near the dining room table, holding warm cider, pretending the bitter taste in my mouth came from the drink and not the humiliation crawling up my throat. Then Dad turned toward me and handed me a toolbox. A red, rust-speckled metal toolbox that looked like it had been buried behind paint cans in the garage for 15 years. It was wrapped in recycled birthday paper with no bow and no card. "Thought this might help around your place," he muttered. My place. The townhouse I bought by myself at 25, while Tyler was still borrowing money and moving back home every time life got difficult. Mom gave me a quick glance, but couldn't hold eye contact. Tyler laughed and nudged my shoulder. "Guess being the baby finally pays off." He winked like we were sharing a joke. We weren't. I left 20 minutes later without making a scene. No yelling, no tears. I drove home with the windows cracked and the toolbox sitting in the passenger seat like roadkill nobody wanted to touch. I told myself I didn't care. Told myself houses were just wood and drywall, and memories didn't live inside walls. I lied. 3 nights later, I finally opened the toolbox, mostly because anger makes your hands restless. I expected old screwdrivers and maybe a spider nest. Instead, I found an envelope taped beneath a false bottom. My stomach tightened immediately because I recognized the handwriting before I even touched it. My mother's soft, careful cursive, the same handwriting from birthday cards and lunchbox notes and Christmas labels. On the front, it said only, Dora. No date, no stamp. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper carrying the faint scent of lavender perfume. Her perfume. Dora, if you're reading this, it means they gave Tyler the house. I wish I could explain this face to face, but I can't. I tried. I failed. But you need to understand something. Things are not what they seem. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Your father made choices I did not support. The house was never his alone to give away. There are things you were never supposed to know. Things about your grandfather's trust. About the original will. About why your name disappeared from the documents 3 years ago. My hands started shaking. I tried to stop it. I lost. You'll find what you need in the attic crawl space beneath the cedar chest. If your father hasn't already found it and thrown it away, it's still there, waiting for you. That was it. No love, Mom. No apology. Just instructions buried inside a rusted toolbox. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the letter, while my refrigerator hummed softly behind me, like the world hadn't just tilted sideways. But it had. This wasn't favoritism anymore. This wasn't Tyler getting the bigger bedroom or more birthday money. My name had been removed from a trust, from a will, from my own family history. By sunrise, I wasn't tired anymore. I was focused. I pulled on jeans, laced my boots, grabbed gloves and a flashlight, then drove back to the house. The house looked identical from the outside. White siding, green shutters, porch swing moving slightly in the breeze. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt smug. Tyler's car wasn't there. Thank God. I still had my old key, probably because nobody imagined I'd ever use it. The lock clicked open reluctantly. Inside smelled like lemon cleaner and new furniture. Sterile, like someone had tried to scrub 30 years of memories out of the walls. The framed family photos were gone. The hallway where Mom used to tape our childhood drawings had been painted over. But some things refused to disappear. The chipped baseboard beside the stairs was still there from when I crashed my skateboard into it at 13. The faint carpet stain Mom never fully cleaned still lingered near the living room window. Ghosts trapped inside wood and fabric. I climbed toward the attic slowly, every creak beneath my feet sounding like the house recognized me. The pull-down ladder was exactly where it had always been. I climbed into dust, insulation, and stale summer heat. The cedar chest sat in the far corner, beneath a single, dim bulb. My pulse thundered as I searched beneath the floorboards behind it. One plank shifted under my hand. Loose. I pried it upward carefully and found a cardboard box hidden inside the crawl space. On top sat another envelope in my mother's handwriting. If you found this, you deserve the truth. Inside were photocopies, trust documents, bank records, unsigned amendments, and letters. Then I saw it. Dora Richards. Highlighted beneath equal beneficiary. My chest tightened so hard, it hurt. Below that was another document, an unsigned amendment proposal suggesting my removal from the trust due to lack of interest in familial continuity and disruptive financial independence. I actually laughed when I read that phrase. Disruptive financial independence. That was their punishment for the daughter who didn't need rescuing. Tyler lost money twice, and Dad covered it. Tyler moved home repeatedly, and Mom remade his bed every time. I bought my own house, paid my own bills, handled my own crises, and somehow that made me disposable. Buried underneath the trust papers was a letter Mom wrote to an estate attorney 3 years ago. She objected to removing me. She documented Dad's pressure, Tyler's silence. She never mailed it. I sat cross-legged in the attic, surrounded by evidence that my own family tried to erase me simply because I survived without them. My hands weren't shaking from sadness anymore. They were shaking from rage. I packed every document carefully back into the box and took pictures of every single page with my phone. Then I lowered the attic ladder quietly and stood staring at the empty hallway wall where our family portraits used to hang. I realized something terrifying in that moment. They never forgot me. They erased me intentionally. And now I had proof. I didn't drive home right away. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. But inside me, everything felt splintered, like safety glass moments before collapse. The cardboard box sat in the passenger seat beside me, sealed shut again, carrying enough paper to destroy the version of my family I'd spent 32 years defending. I ended up at the lake near Briar Hill Park, the same place Mom used to bring Tyler and me every 4th of July. Back then, Tyler followed me everywhere. Back before life taught him it was easier to be protected than responsible. I sat on a damp wooden bench with the documents spread across my lap beneath the glow of my flashlight. The trust paperwork was meticulous. Grandpa's original will clearly stated the property would be divided equally among all direct grandchildren unless every acting trustee formally approved a removal for cause. There was no approval, no signatures, no finalized amendment. Just drafts. Plans.
intentions,
and my father's handwriting in the margins.
self-sufficient,
Already owns property. No need to allocate. I stared at those words until my vision blurred. It wasn't just greed. It was punishment disguised as logic. They looked at my independence and decided it disqualified me from belonging. Meanwhile, Tyler's pages were marked with phrases like stability needed and support structure. Support structure. A beautiful phrase for favoritism. I reread my mother's unsent letter slowly this time. She documented everything calmly, almost clinically. Dad's pressure, Tyler's silence, her refusal to sign any amendment excluding me. The entire thing read less like a mother defending her daughter and more like someone recording evidence before a disaster. But she never mailed it. That hurt more than the betrayal itself, because it meant she knew exactly what they were doing, and still let it happen. I scanned every page using my phone, uploaded copies into cloud storage, then backed them up again onto a hard drive at home. After that, I emailed everything to my old college friend Mark Ellison, now an estate attorney in Chicago. Subject line: hypothetical family drama. His response came 40 minutes later. This doesn't look hypothetical. I almost laughed. Mark called me immediately afterward. Dora, if these documents are real, the trust probably still stands exactly as originally written. Meaning? Meaning they tried scaring you out without legally removing you. I leaned back against the bench, staring across the dark water. So Dad just assumed I'd stay quiet? Families like this usually depend on that. That sentence settled inside me heavier than anything else that night. Families like this usually depend on silence. The next morning, I typed a message to Mom 3 different times before finally sending one. I found the letter. I found everything. I need to talk to you. Not Dad. Just you. 3 hours later, she replied with one sentence. Can you meet somewhere quiet? She chose the old nature preserve off Highway 6, the one with the wooden gazebo near the creek, where she used to take us when we were kids. When I arrived, she was already sitting there holding a coffee thermos with both hands, like she needed something warm to stop herself from shaking apart. She looked older than I remembered. Not physically.
emotionally,
Hi, Mom. She gave a small nod. I knew you'd find it eventually. I sat beside her, but left space between us. Why didn't you send the letter? The wind rustled through the trees overhead. She stared down at the thermos for several seconds before answering. Because your father had already decided. Her voice sounded tired. And Tyler... She stopped. He knew. It wasn't a question. Her silence confirmed everything. He didn't want to fight your father, she whispered finally. He said you didn't need the house because you already had your own life. I laughed softly, but there was nothing funny in it. So, being responsible disqualified me from being family? Her eyes filled instantly. No. But it made me easier to erase. That landed hard enough I saw her physically flinch. I tried to stop it, she whispered. You hid papers in a toolbox. I was scared. The honesty of that answer hurt worse than excuses would have. I looked toward the creek where water moved quietly over stones. Do you know what the worst part is? She shook her head carefully. I would have shared it. Her breathing caught. If Dad had sat me down and said Tyler needed help, that the house meant more to him, I would have figured something out. I would have compromised. But instead, you all decided I didn't deserve honesty. Tears slid down her face, silently. I know. No, I said quietly. I don't think you do. We sat there for a long time without speaking. Then finally, she whispered, "What happens now?" "That depends on whether you're willing to stop protecting him." Her eyes widened slightly. "Dad can't legally remove me without trustee approval," I continued. "You know that. If this becomes legal, your testimony matters. It'll destroy the family." I looked at her then. Really looked at her. It's already destroyed. For a moment, she looked like she might say something else, but instead, she lowered her head and cried silently into her coffee cup, while the creak moved behind us like time refusing to stop for anyone. I left before she could ask me to forgive her. Less than 24 hours later, Tyler texted me, "You good?" That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just the same casual tone he used his entire life whenever consequences got too close. I stared at the screen until anger hardened into clarity. Then I drove to his condo. Tyler opened the door wearing gray joggers and an expensive hoodie, smoothie in hand, already looking irritated. "Well," he said, stepping aside reluctantly, "guess it was only a matter of time." I walked inside without answering. The condo looked staged. White furniture, gray walls, decorative books nobody reads. Not a single thing with emotional weight. "You knew," I said. Tyler sighed dramatically. "Dora, you knew they were removing me." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Dad said it made sense." "Did it?" "You were doing fine." The casualness of that answer nearly knocked the air out of me. "You had your own house," he continued. "Your own career. Your own life. And that made it okay to erase me from Grandpa's trust?" "Nobody erased you." I pulled photocopies from my bag and tossed them onto his marble counter. My name, highlighted in one document and crossed out in another, says otherwise. His face paled slightly when he saw the papers. "So Mom really kept everything," he muttered. That sentence told me more than anything else could have. "You didn't stop him." Tyler looked irritated now, instead of guilty. "What did you want me to do? Start a war with Dad?" "Yes." He scoffed. "Easy for you to say. You always make everything into some moral crusade. And you never make anything into anything." That hit him harder than I expected. He looked away first. "I didn't ask for the house," he muttered. "No," I said quietly. "You just accepted it." Silence filled the condo. Then Tyler finally asked the question sitting between us from the beginning. "So what now?" I stared at him for several seconds. "Now," I said calmly, "you all find out what happens when the quiet daughter stops protecting everyone." The next morning, I sent the email. Not an angry rant, not some dramatic public accusation, just a cold, professional message addressed to the family lawyer who handled Grandpa's estate. I attached the trust documents, the unsigned amendment drafts, and my mother's unsent objection letter. Then I asked one question. Was my removal ever legally finalized? Dad called less than 2 hours later. His voice sounded tight, controlled, dangerous in that quiet way only powerful men know how to weaponize. "You went to the lawyer?" "You already went behind my back first." This was family business. "No," I replied calmly. "It was manipulation." Silence. Then came the line I think he genuinely believed justified everything. "Tyler needed the house more than you did." I closed my eyes briefly. "That still didn't give you the right to erase me." His breathing sharpened on the other end. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "No, Dad. I'm finally looking at it clearly." He hung up first. 3 days later, Mark called me smiling. I could hear it in his voice before he even spoke. The firm reviewed everything. No amendment was ever legally executed. I leaned against my kitchen counter slowly. meaning officially, I still belonged. The official clarification letter arrived the next afternoon. Dora Richards remains a valid and equal beneficiary under the original terms of the family trust. No apology, no emotion, just truth in black ink. That night, Mom came to my townhouse carrying a folded, notarized statement confirming she never approved my removal from the trust. "I should have fought harder," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. "You should have warned me sooner." Tears filled her eyes, but this time she didn't look away. A week later, Tyler left me a voicemail. "I don't know what you want me to say anymore," he admitted quietly. "I guess I just thought you'd stay okay with it." That sentence stayed with me longer than any apology could have, because that was the entire family dynamic in one line. They built their choices around my silence. A few days later, I visited the house one last time, not to reclaim it, not to redecorate it, just to walk through it without feeling erased. The kitchen still creaked near the sink. The old pencil marks tracking our heights were still faintly visible beneath fresh paint. Truth always bleeds through eventually. Before leaving, I noticed something hanging in the hallway. One single framed photo. Tyler and me as kids sitting on the porch covered in dirt, both holding tools beside the old red toolbox. The same toolbox they handed me like an afterthought. Except now I understood what it really was. Not a consolation prize. A warning. And maybe, in a strange way, a key. I left the house quietly after that. No screaming. No revenge speech. Just the certainty that they failed to erase me. Because I was still in the trust. Still in the story. Still Dora Richards.